Hi, Gino. Thanks for getting back to me in your email. Your factoring looks great on the first page. The idea that we're looking at now is to solve these equations by factoring. So you notice there's equals in there, right? These are no longer just expressions. We're solving equations. And the idea with these quadratic equations is we're going to find all of the values that make the equation true. When we've solved linear equations in the past, where it's been x to the first, we only get one solution. Now that we have an x squared, we're going to get two answers for every equation. So one of the problems you had in your paper was this one that you correctly factored to x minus 4 times x minus 8 equals 0. We're using something called the zero product property, which says that, and you'll understand this once you see it, if we have two things that multiply together to be 0, we know that one of them has to be 0, or both of them are 0. So we're going to use that idea here, which is really what we have for each of these equations. If x minus 4 times x minus 8 multiplies together to be 0, that tells us that either x minus 4 equals 0 or x minus 8 equals 0. And now that we have those two small equations, we can solve them. They're two small linear equations now. We get x equals 4, or x equals, if I add 8 to both sides, x equals 8. What that means is there's two different numbers that solve this original equation. If we substituted 4 in for x 4x squared minus 12 times 4 plus 32 would equal 0. Same thing with the 8. 8 squared minus 12 times 8 plus 32 would also equal 0. So there's two answers for every one of these quadratic equations. And the idea is, number 5 on the worksheet, you did correctly, you factored that correctly. We're just going to take those two factors and set them equal to 0. We know this equation, 5n plus 4 times n minus 2 will equal 0 if 5n plus 4 is 0, or if n minus 2 is 0. This one's easy to solve. We'll just add that 2 and get n equals 2 is one of our solutions. For the other one, 2 steps here. We'll subtract the 4 first. 5n equals negative 4, and then divide by the 5. So we do get a fraction for this one, n equals negative 4 over 5. So there's two answers. One of them happens to be a fraction. So one of the things, the reasons this works is because of that multiplication property of 0. If an equation's not equal to 0, we can't solve by factoring yet, but we can make it equal to 0. So what I'm going to do is set this equation equal to 0 by adding 2 to both sides. And when I add that 2, I need to add it to its like term on the other side, which in this case would be that 23. And that gives me a squared plus 10a plus 25 equals 0. And now I'm going to try to factor that and then set those factors equal to 0 and go from there. I'm just going to run through the first steps of a few of these questions for you. Same thing on this one, right? I need to get it equal to 0. I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. There is no like term to subtract from, so this one becomes p squared minus 16 equals 0. And if we're trying to factor that, you might recognize that as the difference of two squares, or if we're trying to follow the x pattern, that would be p squared plus 0p minus 16 equals 0. So in this case, we have a minus 16 up here, 0 here, looking for two factors of negative 16 that add to 0. Okay, so the idea with the n is make them equal to 0. Here's one with two terms on the right, but we're going to take it one at a time. I'm going to add the 1, again, to its like term, which would be that minus 1. And then I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides, and I'll subtract it from its like term. This one gives me x squared minus 3x. Minus 1 plus 1 isn't there anymore. I could write plus 0 equals 0. And again, go from there with the x. In this case, the top would be 0, the bottom would be minus 3. I'm looking for factors of 0 that add to negative 3. Okay? And then this one, again, get it equal to 0 first by subtracting that 1. And there is no like term on the left, sorry. I get 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. And then do your factoring, and then set them equal to 0. Okay, hope that helps, and hope you're back with us soon. Take care, bye-bye.